Hello everyone, and welcome back. I know I haven't put out any videos in a while, but now that Technic 7 has kind of become a more official thing with more people starting to use it, I figured it's about time to start doing some more tutorials for you guys. So I've thrown together a world here in creative mode, so I can just kind of show you guys really easily the different things we can do. So let's fall down here. It didn't take very long to put this together, but yeah. So I'm just going to go over to the industrial craft area to start with, but as you can see, I've got 4 different kind of wings. One for buildcraft and red power, which is basically the piping mods in the game that I'll hopefully get to at some point. The equivalent exchange section, which I plan to get to at some point as well. And the Thaumcraft. Now, Thaumcraft has a lot of new stuff in it, and I still have to do a lot of playing around with that on my own before I can even start putting videos out on that. So I apologize for those of you who are hoping for that soon. I will get on that as soon as possible. Anyways, to the industrial craft section. So basically, all I'm going to be doing in this video is I'm just going to be going through all the different machines here, just kind of give you guys basically a list of all the different machines from the Industrial Craft 2 mod. So if there's anything in particular you want to see me put out, please leave a comment and let me know. That way I can make a point of getting to those machines or that machine. And as well, I don't show the tools in this video, but if you'd like to see them, I will make a point of getting a video out about them. So the first machine is the Cropmatron, which is a relatively new addition. Oops. No momento. Let me just turn that off for now. Okay, so we have the Cropmatron, which is a relatively new addition to the Industrial Craft 2 mod. It basically just lets you grow different crops of some sort. I have to play around with this one a bit, simply because I just haven't tried it since they added it in. Then we have the basic machines, the generator, which allows us to generate electricity, the extractor, which allows us to extract rubber from rubber wood and from sticky resin, the macerator, which allows us to double our output for ores, the iron furnace and the electric furnace, which are simply just faster furnaces. The electric furnace runs on electricity versus the standard iron furnace running on fuel. We then have a various supply of power generators. We have a solar panel. We have a water mill, a geothermal generator, a windmill, and a nuclear reactor. Now, obviously, these are all powered in different ways. The solar panel technically needs to have a blank area above the block. I think technically you can actually trick it using half blocks, but I've yet to actually test that. The water mill requires water, obviously. The geothermal generator requires buckets of lava or lava cells as well. Those work. However, with a lava cell, you will lose your tin for that you use to make the cell. The windmill requires to be in the air. There's some kind of somewhat complicated math. Basically, the water mill and the windmill really aren't worth using, simply because the amount of energy units you get per tick for them, for the number of them you have to get a decent amount, really isn't worth it. We then have the nuclear reactor, which I showed you guys in the last one. I don't think that's updated too much, but if it has, I'll put out an updated video on that. We have the compressor, which allows you to create nanocarbon or nanofibers and really cool different things. Like you can actually make the quantum suit and nanosuit using different materials from the compressor. Sorry. We then have the induction furnace, which has 2 inputs and outputs, and it has different speeds at which it can smelt things. We then have the power sections here, which are the bat box, the MFE, and the MFSU. From left to right, they store 40,000 EU, 600,000 EU, and 10 million EU. And then next to those, we have the low voltage transformer, the medium voltage transformer, and the high voltage transformer, which from right to left transform energy from 2,000 EU energy packets down to 512. 512 down to, I believe, 128, and then from 128 down to 32, which is what most of the low-end machines will accept. Next, we have the pump, which will allow you to extract water. I'm not 100% sure how this works. I believe it just takes water from directly below it. It might take water from an entire pool source. I'm not 100% sure on that. The miner, I know, definitely only digs straight down, to my knowledge. I need to play around with this one as well. But this one requires a drill and a scanner, and then some mining pipe, I believe. Next, we have the canning machine, which allows you to turn any type of food into one food resource, which is basically canned food, as I'm sure you can imagine. You get different numbers of cans depending on what food you put in. So, for example, if you were to put in an apple, you'd get a certain number of cans, and if you put in a piece of bread, you will get a different number of cans. Now, canned bread and canned apple don't sound too appetizing to me. However, this machine was made back when food was not stackable, so it was kind of a workaround to having to carry around 1,800 pork chops and fill your entire inventory with them. The next machine is the magnetizer, which allows you to make kind of like elevators without having to make a really complicated piston setup. As long as you're wearing metal boots, these will work to take you up. And I believe if you walk up to one and you hold shift, you can actually slowly travel down them. Then we have the recycler, which will turn anything you put into it into scrap, possibly. We then have the Tesla coil, which can be used as a base defense, requires a lot of EU, so you're probably going to need a nuclear reactor in order to run to Tesla coil, as well as a teleporter. The teleporter also requires a massive amount of EU, depending on how far you're going to be traveling with it. You can actually use one teleporter to teleport you from one place to somewhere completely across the map. However, it requires a lot of energy. And I believe there are actually better ways of getting around without using up all your electricity to teleport yourself. I believe Thaumcraft actually has warps that you can use that would be much more efficient to set up and a lot easier to use and a lot more resource efficient. Then we have the electrolyzer. Now the electrolyzer is a bit weird. Basically it turns water cells into electrolyzed water cells. So basically you're turning a water cell into a battery, which will originally store about 15,000 or 15,000 EU per electrolyzed water cell. It can also take those electrolyzed water cells and turn them back into normal water cells. However, when it does so, it will only get 13,500 EU back out of the cell. The remaining 1,500 EU will be lost. So it allows you to store a lot of electricity, but you are going to lose about 10% of that electricity when you try to get it back. So it's kind of a functional thing. I personally don't like it because you're losing electricity. There are better ways of storing it. But I suppose since it's somewhat complicated to try and automate a battery storage system, this could be an alternative. But like I said, you lose electricity, so it's kind of up to you. We then we then have the mass fabricator, which allows you to create matter. Now this you will definitely not be able to run without a nuclear reactor. Although if you do, although you can try to run it, it will just run extremely slowly. Even with a nuclear reactor, they tend to run really slowly unless all the energy is pumped directly into them. Now the matter can be used to create almost anything in the game, I believe, at least for vanilla items. And you can also take that matter and eventually craft it into the required materials for the nanosuit or the quantum suit. I can't remember which one's which, but basically the white power suit for the industrial craft mod, that's the one that you'll be able to make using the mass fabricator. Then we have, nope, okay, apparently we can't right click on that. Next we have the Terraformer, which allows you to turn different, basically allows you to change the land. So you could, if you place a terraformer and you power it, and this requires a lot of energy as well, the Terraformer will allow you to change what the ground is like. So you can actually change all this into sand by putting the correct little nub thing in. I forget what it's called. I think it's a blueprint or something. But basically, you put the Terraformer informational thing into it, and it will start changing everything just by you providing with some electricity. Now, the next two things really aren't useful for single player because they obviously really won't help you in single player. There's no real difference. But if you're playing on SMP or Technic, for example, they can be used quite efficiently, I would assume. Now, the personal safe is essentially a double safe, or a double chest, and it only takes up one space. So that is kind of useful. However, obviously the alchemical chests are one space and hold a lot more. Now, the reason the personal safe is in the mod is so that when you're playing on multiplayer, you can place this down, and once you open it, no one else can open this chest. So it's like having a locked chest using any of the lock chest plugins there are, except you don't need them. It will do it automatically through the mod. So that's kind of nice. Obviously, it doesn't. Obviously, your other chests will still be unprotected, but the personal safe will allow you to protect your items without any other sort of plugins. Now, the Tradomat, I'm unsure how you have to set this up. The wiki or the website page will actually explain this, and I will actually set up a video specifically for these two just to make sure that everyone understands how to work them. Now, the Tradomat can be used to regulate how things work. So you could actually allow people to trade in all sorts of materials and receive the Industrial Craft 2 credits as a sort of form of currency. And you could actually allow, you could actually have iron or gold or diamond or something be worth a certain number of credits. Now, obviously, there are plugins that allow you to do this for multiplayer, so the Tradomat's kind of a not really necessary thing, but it is a cool idea because you can set up specific places to trade items. So you could have one piece of cobble equal to 4 pieces of dirt or something, and you could essentially, instead of having players buy items, you can have them trade for them. So it's an interesting idea. It's not necessarily the most useful thing, but it is something that could be used, I suppose. So those are all the basic blocks that you would be able to place in the game, not counting some of the non-machine blocks. These are basically the machine blocks. And yeah, so if you have any questions about any of those, please leave a comment and let me know, and I will make a point of getting around to the one that you want to see as soon as possible. Now what I will do now is I'll actually enable NEI again, and I'm going to turn everything off except for these. So, as you can see here, we have bronze tools here, which are basically, I believe they're a little bit more, let me just turn off the rain. We have our bronze tools, which are have a little bit more durability than an iron tool. They're made using copper and tin. I forget the exact ratio of copper to tin. I believe it's 3 copper to 1 tin to make 2 bronze. I think the recipe you have to use is using dusts. I don't believe the bars work. I think that actually creates something in red power, but I'm not 100% sure on that. Then as you can see, we have the mining drill and the diamond drill. Those can be used by the miner as well as by hand. The diamond drill is much faster than the mining drill. They also have a chainsaw, which is obviously an electric axe. It works much better than any of the other axes as far as I've seen. But as well, these tools don't hold much EU, so if you're going to use them, you should either get a backpack or preferably a lap pack, I believe it's called. The one with lapis lazuli in the recipe, it holds like 300,000 EU or something. It takes a long time to charge, but it's well worth having. Then there's the 2 scanners, which are really only used by the miner. I think you can use them by hand as well, but they don't really help too much. The tree tap, you will need to get rubber from the trees. I will explain that again. The mining laser, which has multiple modes, or multiple firing modes, so you can shoot different types of lasers. The bronze tools, you have the wrench, which you can use to remove the machines. We have the EU reader, which will allow you to test how much EU is currently traveling down the wires. The insulation cutter, which will remove one layer of insulation from a wire. We then have the wrenches, and I believe the electric wrench actually has a lossless mode, which can be toggled, which basically means that it will never lose an item, or it'll never lose the machine block you're trying to pick up, which the standard wrench sometimes will do. Then there's the construction foam sprayer. This is a really cool thing that I want to show you guys. It's extremely useful. The construction foam, once it turns into cement, is actually creeper proof, so it's definitely worth doing sooner than later, because you can actually creeper proof your entire home quite easily. All you need is, I believe it's, you know what, I'll talk about it when I get there, but it's relatively cheap, and it's really easy to do, and it's definitely worth doing. Then we have the electric T-tap, or tree tap. Obviously, the benefit to this is that you don't have to make yourself a quintillion number of tree taps. You just recharge it and you're good to go. And then as well, we have the electric hoe for those of you who like to do a lot of gardening. I am personally of the preference that gardening takes a lot of work, or not gardening, but growing wheat and such. It's a lot more work than I'm usually willing to do. Although setting up a machine to do it for me, I'm usually willing to do that. So that pretty much sums up the tools, I believe. If I missed any of them, it's not my fault. You can blame NEI. I'm simply going to the tools. Obviously, there's the different armors. The nano armor is the black armor, which is made from compressing coal dust into other materials. The quantum armor is made by creating matter. And then the utility here are basically the backpacks, the construction foam backpack, the composite vest, which is a lot stronger than the iron and diamond vests, I believe. It takes a lot more damage, and it takes less damage. Then there's the electric jetpack, the jetpack, which requires fuel, the lap pack, and rubber boots, which reduce your falling damage. So that pretty much sums it up, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed, and hopefully you guys like the look of the new world. This is where I'll be trying to do most of my videos from now on, just to try and keep things standard. I will be doing my best to release world saves to you guys, so you guys can kind of play around with everything I've showed you. Now in these chests here, there are stacks of 64 of each item to save you having to dig through the creative mode page or the NEI section. Let me just turn everything back on. Now one thing to make note of as well, from what I've seen on the forums and such, is that in NEI you're going to want to click on item subsets, go to blocks, and right click on mob spawners to make them not show up here. Apparently if you leave them there and you try to search for things, occasionally it will cause your game to stop showing NEI, and it is apparently a real pain to try and fix. So thanks for watching, guys. Like I said, hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, feel free to like or subscribe. That'd be great. And again, if you have any questions about any of these machines, please let me know, and I will get around to that specific machine as soon as I can. So thanks for watching, guys. Have fun.